Hi all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Last three videos we have seen about the deployment strategies of in Kubernetes with three deployment strategies, and those were recreate and blue-green deployment as well on the rolling update. Now the final, the most popular deployment strategy what we're going to see now today is Canary deployment strategy. As you could see here, the end users accessing the application that has been hosted or that has been developed or deployed in my Kubernetes cluster with 100% traffic going into the cluster to access the application from the user's point of view. Now, the scenario is I have a developers team who has developed the version V2 of the application and it is ready to be deployed after all the testing after all the testing has been completed successfully. Now, how to deploy the V2 version into my Kubernetes cluster by using this Canary deployment strategy is I would deploy this version V2 in my Kubernetes cluster, and you can see that I would be routing the 90% of the traffic to my version V1 and rest 10% of my traffic to the version V2. So to gain a confidence from 10% of my users, so you can tweak it based upon this either 10% or 5% or 4%, however you want to specify it. Based upon that, I would be getting those percentage of users confidence. From there, I would be moving the traffic based upon my successful criteria to 100%. By this, my deployment strategy of Canary has two advantages. It is an deployment with no downtime, and as well to route a particular percentage of traffic to particular set of users to get the confidence level of application and scale it accordingly, which means that we can foresee any issues upfront and we can roll back the new versions without affecting the end users application availability. Now let's switch back to see how to do this Canary deployment in the background in a practical session. I have already my Kubernetes cluster created. Okay, so let's confirm as usual that there is nothing running and my clusters are and there is no deployments or services apart from my Kubernetes cluster. Okay, fine. You can see the in my Kubernetes cluster there is no deployments deployed and there is no services exposed apart from a default Kubernetes cluster service. Now I have created a deployment file named deployment canary v1.yaml. If you can see it very clearly here, as to before, if you want to understand what all those parameters in this file, you can refer to our old videos of the recreate deployment strategy in which I would have explained what each and every parameters here are used for. So I would be highlighting or mentioning here what are all the watch out parameters that we need to consider during this deployment of Canary model in my Kubernetes cluster. So if you would have clearly noticed here, metadata name, I would have specified it as deployment strategy canary v1. So by this, I'm naming my deployment name as deployment strategy canary v1. And the strategy type here, I'm not going to make it as rolling update or recreate because the rolling update and recreate comes with the Kubernetes strategy type itself as a keyword. But whereas for canary and for the blue green, there is no keyword of any strategy type. So let it be the same as rolling update. And coming back down here, you see here I myself mentioning that I'm going to keep this deployment strategy group version v1, and this deployment is going to pull the image of my application version v1, and then I'm going to create the service named deployment strategy example of version v1, and as well the selector application with version v1 is what the keyword that would be grouping my deployment under version v1 and exposing this services as named deployment strategy example by matching the version v1 with the deployment. So now let's go and deploy our application with this YAML file. So it's kubectl apply -f deployment -canary v1.yaml. Okay. As you could see here, it has created a new deployment named deployment strategy Canary FNV1, and it has created a new service deployment strategy example, which would be exposing the deployment strategy Canary V1 as a service to the end users. Now let's validate whether all the pods, deployments, services has been created and registered with the Google Cloud IP for accessing it. Not still. So let's do a kubectl get all in the meanwhile. Okay. So as you could see here, the deployment name is a deployment strategy Canary V1 of 3 replica sets, and 3 are up to date and available for 37 seconds. And below are the replica sets detail, and the service name is deployment strategy example. Okay, and you can see the pods or deployment strategy Canary V1, and all the 3 are in running state. But still, we are waiting for an external IP that to be registered with for our services. So now let's grep for the services. Sorry, tail for the services to find the external IP. Normally, okay, it's pretty fast. So let's let's take this IP and let me access through port number 80. Okay, so this is my version V1 of the application, which is accessible. Okay, fine, clear. Now let's try to deploy version V2 over our application, but not exposing as any services. So let's go to deployment hyphen canary other file. If you could see here, I have created the deployment 2.yaml, the canary 2.yaml file with only deployment but no services inside it. So which means I have created the deployment, but I'm not exposing as a services, so nobody can access it. So if you see here, I'm giving the deployment name as deployment hyphen strategy hyphen canary hyphen v2, and I am grouping it as under version v2, and I'm pulling my image of version v2. It's pretty straightforward. Let's deploy this. Kubectl apply hyphen f deployment hyphen canary hyphen v2.yaml. Okay, so as you could see here, in our previous deployment of Canary V1, there could be two lines of output. One is the deployment created and services created. Here, since in this canary-v2.yaml file, we haven't specified the services parameters, though we have specified only the deployment parameters. That's the reason we could see that only deployment strategy-canary-v2 deployment has been created. Now let's check all the status of pods and services. Okay, so as you could see here, there are 3 pods running for version V1, and the 3 pods have been running for version V2 for last 33 seconds. And all the 6 totally are in running state. And the service name is the same, deployment strategy example. Okay, and the deployment is Canary V1, Canary V2, but whereas the Canary V1 is exposed to this services, but Canary V2 has been deployed but is not exposed to any services. Now let's go to the deployment Canary V1.yaml file. Now if you could see here, my deployment name, deployment strategy example, would be exposing only the deployment that is tagged as version V1. Okay. In order to make it as a canary, now I would like to route my traffic 50% with version V1 and 50% as version V2. So what I would do is, let me remove the version tag V1, so that all my traffic, so that if I'm going to, sorry, if I'm going to remove the version tag V1, my deployment strategy example, regardless of version V1 or V2, which is matching this label, would be accessed, which means version V1 and V2 with an service name deployment strategy example would be accessed now. So let's see that. Let me remove the version tag. Okay, we don't need to do that on the deployments because we already deployed it. We are now going to map the or group all the version v1 and v2 of particular application to a same service name. That's the reason I'm touching only services part, not touching the deployment part. So now let's save this. Okay, cool, it has saved. Now let's go and deploy this. Kubectl deploy -f deployment -canary -v1.yaml. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, it's kubectl apply. Okay, so as you could see here, the deployment is unchanged because I never touched any of my deployment parameters. I just removed version from my services part of the file. That's why it says configured, but still though, the application will be in running state. There is no interruption to any application downtimes. So if you're going to list all the kubectl get all commands, you could see very clearly that all the six are running state, all the two deployments. So nothing has been changed. So now let's go here. Okay, this is my version v1 of my application. Now let's keep refreshing this. I'm getting root to the version v2. Now back to version v1, v1, v2, v1, v2, v2, v1. So by this you could have understood some of the traffics has been getting routed to version v1 and some of the traffics are getting version v2. Now I am seeing that my version v2 is accessible to the end user, and as end user I'm happy with the version v2 update though I was expecting my output as, and I am confident and I am comfortable and happy with to move or extend this 50% of this version v2 traffic to v1. This is the feedback I'm going to get it from users. Okay, so once I get it and we tested everything is fine, now let's make this as 100% deployment for all the end users. So let me clear this. So again, let me go to this deployment file, deployment hyphen canary hyphen v1.yaml. Now let me come back here and let me specify again the version tag as v2. Sorry. So if you could clearly see here, now I am telling that please deploy version v2 of my, sorry, not deploy, please use this services name to access only version v2 of my application, which means now all my 100% of my traffic would be routed to version v2 and not version v1. So here also you see is pretty straightforward. There is no any downtime and it's very straightforward approach as well. So all the pods or all the deployments are same as how it was earlier. Now let me go to my same end URL or end services to see. You see, yes. Now you can see all my traffic has been routed to version v2. Now I can go and delete the old deployment. Deployment, deployment hyphen strategy hyphen canary hyphen v1, which is my old pod. Yeah, it has been deleted. So which means the old version of the application has been deleted. Now we are running with only the version v2, which is the latest version. You can see the old version v1 has started to get terminated. So by this we have explained what is the Canary deployment in theoretical and as well the practical session. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye bye.